Hi, welcome to Knife Chats with Tobias. I'm Tobias. Here's Kitty. She's the production staff. We're going to get the show on the road in just a second. If you like what you see, don't forget to leave a comment, give it a big old thumbs up, and share it with your friends. Also, don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Kitty loves to hear that bell ring. I thought I would talk a little bit more about the Rough Ryder Reserve line of knives. So far, I've only picked up two of them. The two I skipped were the Kayak and the first one, I guess, which was like an easy open razor knife or something like that. And those were also the two least expensive of the knives in the series. The razor was like $30. The Kayak was $40. The swell center whittler up here in the front is the largest of them, and it was $60. And then the bar back in the back here was $50. So the two I picked up were the most expensive, and well, the swell center whittler I really do like, and I have carried it a couple times now. It supposedly has an issue with blade wrap. Mine does not, and a lot of people have said the same thing, that theirs doesn't have that issue. But I do know a few people have complained that that knife has blade wrap, as well as the Kayak. By blade wrap, we're talking about the blade making contact with the spine. I have not noticed that with my knife, and it definitely has some clearance on the from the spine when you close it. It is a very tight spring, but you can see that it can travel a little beyond. So mine does not have the blade wrap. This is the third time I've actually shown this knife in a video also. One time addressing specifically the blade wrap. But if yours does have blade wrap, do what Pete from Jersey Knife Guy does with all of his knives. That is, close it gently and you don't have to worry about it. And that really is kind of good advice on any of the traditional pattern knives. You don't really need to go around slamming it shut all the time. If you can, just, let it close. You don't have to prove it has some walk and talk. In any case, the other knife I really wanted to talk to you more about was the bar back that I have in the back here. I just did a video on this and went into great detail on it, what the flaws were and everything else. I'll link over to that video. But what I want to do in this video is address some of the questions that followers of the channel made in the previous video on the bar back. And also try and see where it fits in my knife collection, because I am going to keep it. And I think one of the reasons this knife appealed to me more than either the Kayak or the Easy Open Razor, which were both very close to a traditional knife. The reason I think this one appealed more to me is because of its quirkiness. Now, I did not pick up the Easy Open Razor or the Kayak, and those were both knives based on older patterns that have been around for a while. Well, here's an Easy Open Jack, and it also has the one-hand opening blade, which cannot be used one-handed. But in any case, it's the razor style blade that you find on the Easy Open Razor in the Rough Ryder Reserve lineup. Well, this is not a knife that I really care too much about. I've already tested it out in the regular Rough Ryder line, more or less. This is smaller than that knife, and you really can't catch this on anything and open it. But I just really don't care too much for the blade profile on this knife, even though it has a secondary sheepfoot blade. But this is one of those knives where I wish it would have been a little more standard and had the sheepfoot blade or a secondary pin blade or a nail file here, and a regular spear blade for the main blade. And that's the same thing with the Rough Rider Reserve knife. If they ever bring that knife back out with a spear blade in it, I'll pick that up right away, because that is so cool. I would much rather have this with just a basic spear blade in the easy open frame. As for the kayak, well, the kayak was a takeoff on a canoe, and I like the canoe pattern, especially when it's 3 5/8 inches long and has your spear blade and your pin blade. Now, what they did with the kayak is, well, they mixed up the frame a little bit, because they have this swell in the center and a little bit of a hump right there in the middle, and that did not appeal to me. I wish they would have just kept the frame of a basic canoe, but I could live with the bump in the middle. What really bothered me with it was the blade choices. I'm not a fan of the reverse tanto blades. I know they're very popular now, and a lot of people really enjoy using the reverse tanto blades, but they are not my choices, especially when, like several people had mentioned, is it's not really much of a reverse tanto blade. It was really more like a funky sheepfoot or a funky Warncliffe blade than it was a reverse tanto. And I guess that's why I just didn't bother to grab that one. But if they were to take the kayak frame and perhaps go the direction of the gunboat, even in the kayak frame, that I would not mind at all. And the gunboat is basically a very large canoe pattern knife. As you can tell, this one comes in 4.5 inches long. And what you have on that is usually a spear blade, and then the typical blades you find on a stockman knife. So you got a sheepfoot blade up in front by the spear blade, and then a spay blade. Even with the spay blade, I would have liked to have seen like a kayak or a gunboat rather than the kayak. Either of those knives I would jump on. A single bladed easy open knife with a spear blade, or a gunboat instead of the kayak. But now, where do we stand with the bar back? Now, like I mentioned to begin with, one of the things I really liked about this knife was the quirkiness of it, the shape of it and everything else. How did that get in there? Yeah. That was one of the flaws that Pete from Jersey Knife Guy talked about, the fact that the distance between the blades is unnecessary. You got that big gap there, and that makes this knife a lot wider than it needs to be, because of how much of a gap you have between those springs and everything, or between the blades. How much of a gap? Well, I was talking in the last video, and someone actually asked about it. The differences between the canoe and the bar back. They asked about the weight. Well, I have done the weight now, and the difference in weight between these two knives is 25.3 grams or 0.88 ounces. And that means this knife is 25.3 grams heavier than a canoe. And part of that is because of the heavy material going on in it. You've got such thick back springs going on and such larger blades and everything else that it is just that much heavier. But more to the point is the width. Both of these are knives with just 2 blades in them. And as you can tell, the blade stock on this knife, on the bar back, is much thicker than what you have in a canoe. Very much thicker. So that is one reason why it is so much wider. I don't know if it needs to be basically 5.4 millimeters or 0.21 inches thicker than a canoe. That's like 1/5 of an inch or 3/16 of an inch, something like that, thicker than a canoe. And I'm measuring at the point of the shield on both the case canoe and the bar back. That's a substantial thickness, and that does make a difference when you're putting it in your pocket. For instance, the bar back is the same thickness as a Victorinox Swiss Army climber. And that speaks a lot. You're talking about 3 layers here versus 2 layers. And this knife, not only can it open bottles up with its bottle opener, but that bottle opener also has a flathead screwdriver going for it. It's also got a can opener. It has 2 blades for cutting, and this one has a much longer cutting edge than the bar back has. And it also has a secondary blade over here. Matter of fact, just out of curiosity, you can see the difference there. Even this, even the spear blade on the bar back is shorter than the blade you have on a Swiss Army climber. So that's a significant difference. Plus, this one has the corkscrew that the bar back doesn't. So this is going to work more efficiently for a bartender's knife than the bar back, which is being sold as a bartender's knife. And if you see there, 91 millimeters is just shy of the 3 5/8 of an inch long. So you're looking at a much more functional knife. So why would anyone really consider this as a useful pocket knife? And that's the argument that I think a lot of people are looking at it as. So you can see where the issues come with the knife. It's too heavy. It doesn't have enough function for what you're getting, and it's too wide for no particular reason. So those are all the negatives for the knife, and really, it's why I think I'm going to coin this knife the 1959 Edsel of the Rough Rider Reserve lineup. This is just the one that like looks cool on paper, but just missed the mark. And kind of like the Edsel, the 59 Ford Edsel. It's like they thought this was going to be the greatest car in the world, and everyone looked at it and said, "Oh man, what the hell were you thinking when you made that one?" So that's where the bar back falls into. One of my subscribers saw it and said, "I know where I'm going to peg that knife, and it's not as a bartender's knife. It's a novelty knife." And they really shouldn't. They should really concentrate on more traditional, usable patterns than a novelty knife when they're looking at going into the Rough Rider Reserve lineup, because of well, you know, who wants to spend $50 on a novelty knife? And that viewer was absolutely correct. That is probably why this knife appealed to me so much, is because it's just an oddball. And I got a feeling that's where it's going to end up being, or I'm hoping that's where it is going to be in the Rough Rider lineup. I hope this ends up being the oddball knife in the Rough Rider lineup, or the 59 Edsel of the Rough Rider Reserve knives. And as long as we're talking about some oddball knives, what the heck? Let's have a parade of some of the oddball knives that I have in my collection that I feel will just be kind of cool for the Rough Rider Reserve 59 Edsel. Let's start off with the Zooline monkey wrench. Okay, technically it's not a knife. After all, it is a monkey, or a wrench that looks like a monkey, but it does have two blades on the back side here, and the front blade has a cap lifter and a nail file and a little screwdriver tip, and then the back side is your Spearmaster blade, made in Japan. I think these date from like the late 50s, early 1960s. The Zooline monkey wrench. Who doesn't want a Camco rocket whistle? Come on. You take this string and you spin it around and it's supposed to whistle, or you can just blow through it and whistle. But it's the Camco rocket whistle. These were a really big thing back in the 60s. Again, you got a cap lifter or screwdriver here, so you can still open your beer, or at that time your soda pop bottle, and you got a little spear blade. The Camco rocket whistle. Anybody got a fish that needs last rites? A fish priest. That is also a little pokey thing. That kind of goes with it. Yeah, well, you may not be able to pop that bottle open with the cap lifter, but you can definitely break the bottle. Let's move that back there. And you know, if you think using this pin blade is uncomfortable with that big old Wharncliffe blade in the way, that's nothing compared to this next knife. We're talking about the gaff knife. And yeah, this was definitely a gaff in a design flaw. You got the big old gaff hook here so you can snag a fish and pull it out of the water. But then you got these two other blades on here. You got your long clip blade, and you have your fish scaling blade with the hook remover, and as always, a cap lifter. But first of all, those blades are hard to open even when this thing is in the place. But talk about uncomfortable when you're trying to use it. Yeah, gaff knives. It's like, what were they thinking when they made that hook like that? So yeah, so there's other knives out there that just aren't that comfortable to use when you got one of the blades closed. But people look around for them today and say, I want one of those. At least I did. So another oddball knife. And as long as we're talking about knives that are awkward to hold, yeah, I know it's a lot of fish knives. I collect a lot of weird fish stuff. These are some of the most clumsy knives in the world when it comes to holding them. These are the floating fish knives with the cork handles. This thing is 2 inches wide, 1 inch thick, and it's got 3 blades on it that are all center mounted. Look at the bail on that. Yeah, that's going to be real helpful. We'll start with this spike on the back, if I can get it open. So you got that spike. I don't exactly know if this is supposed to be a marlin spike or what. It's flat on one side and rounded on the other, so it's more like just an awl or a punch or something. I don't know what you're going to be doing with it. Jab, 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 I guess. I don't know. Maybe I definitely would not use it to break up ice or anything. And would you be comfortable using that? Notice it isn't even laying out straight. It's got a little bit of a bend to it, so Maybe it is supposed to be a marlin spike. I don't know, but how are you going to use it? And the same thing with these two blades over here. You got your this is a very much a combination tool. You got your bottle opener, so it's got the bar back beat right. Got a nail file. If that is the hook remover, I feel sorry for the fish when you're trying to get out the hook. And then I guess that's the scaling blade. Looks kind of like a saw blade, but it's not sharp at all, so it's got to be the scaling blade. And again, I don't feel comfortable holding it. And then the other blade you got on here is a relatively thick clip blade, but again, would you really want to use that? The only plus on this is that if it falls off your boat, it's going to float in the water, probably float away, but yeah, there you have that one. So suddenly the bar back is not looking as useless as it did a few minutes ago. And then one of my favorite Oddball knives, which has 2 patents, by the way, one in Great Britain and one in the United States. Knife was made in Hong Kong. Yes, this is a knife, but it's not a folding knife. It is a 2-part knife, though. You pull this out, and you got your blade, a can opener, a little bit of a fish scaler there, and a bottle opener. And you stick it in like so, and then you can use it. And I've never really used it. I think it would work okay for some light cutting and stuff. And I guess you could use it as a bar tool, considering you got a can opener. This could be a zester even, you know, thinking about it. Maybe you could use that as a zester, so maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be a fishing tool. And you got your cap lifter there. But more importantly, you got a Phillips screwdriver and a flathead screwdriver, and the way those work is you take them out of the bottom there, stick this back in here, and they go right in here. So tell me now, how cool is that for an oddball knife? This one kind of says, look at me, I can do stuff. So it's pretty cool. So any case, I think that's where my my Rough Rider Reserve is going to live. This is going to be like I said, my 59 Edsel for the Rough Rider Reserve lineup. It is just an oddball that did not quite hit the mark. But I do think that it shows a lot of potential. And I do hope that they use this frame again, because I love the frame. That is such a cool line. And well, let's do what we're not supposed to do and open up both blades at the same time. If that secondary blade is out of the way, this does not feel bad at all. So that's a plus right there. Now, because it's 2 blades and I'm left-handed, this is not the most comfortable finger choil, but if you're right-handed, that feels great. It feels much better in the right hand than the left hand. I can live with that. So that's a plus there. This side, with that blade out of the way, that also feels really good. It does not feel like a problem at all, even with the finger choil back there. Now, that blade would be closed normally, so there wouldn't be a finger choil, but your pinky would still wrap around the back end there, and it doesn't feel that bad. You can either get it there or you can get it on the other side. Either way, it will feel okay. So the spear blade there is not too much of a problem. Even with the spear blade, the finger choil there does not feel really awful. Where this knife missed the mark really is right there with what makes it the bar back, the cap lifter. I think they were a little too ambitious with the knife. What I would do is reintroduce this knife as like a Warncliffe half whittler, something like that, and you could actually make this Warncliffe blade drop a little lower, And again, I would still try and get the both nail nicks on the same side, but a lower Wharncliffe blade and you would this knife would be fine. I really do think so, especially if you get rid of that cap lifter. A little bit lower on the Wharncliffe blade, keep the spear blade there, and you'd have a nice Wharncliffe half whittler with a really interesting frame. I like the frame. That is really what drew me to the knife. So I'm hoping they don't throw the baby out with the bathwater with this knife. I hope they take the comments that I've made and other people have made and just do some minor tweaking to this, and you would have a winner of a knife. The other thing to do is clean up that gap. You don't need that gap in there. Remove the center liner. Put those two put the two back springs flush to each other. That'll get rid of the gap. It'll make the knife a little bit narrower, and you'll definitely have a winner then. Anyway, that's what I think they need to do with the bar back. In the meantime, my Rough Ryder Reserve 59 Edsel will join my other Oddball knives. Thanks again for dropping by here at Knife Chats with Tobias. I'm Tobias, and here's Kitty, the production staff. There is a real team working here to get all this stuff done. Could not get it done without Kitty's help. So don't forget to subscribe, ring that notification bell, give us a thumbs up, or that other one, but be warned, Kitty doesn't like that other one. Do you, Kitty? And don't forget to leave a comment. Kitty loves to read the comments. Thanks again. Talk to you again soon.